Hello, all, and welcome to the Movie Bears podcast. I'm Brad Harris, and along with my fellow co hosts of the Hirsute Pursuit, we review movies either current or classic on this show. This week, we're switching things up a little bit. Rather than reviewing a movie or two movies or three like we sometimes do, we're actually going to be bringing you a lot more than that. A lot more. We're not going to be doing full reviews, but this is our top 10 films of 2022 episode. Each one of us has compiled our top 10 list of films from last year, which is very timely with Oscar nominations coming out today. It feels like a good time to do this. And we've also compiled a list of the show's collective top 10. So we're anxious and looking forward to going through those lists with all of you. And of course, we'd love to hear your thoughts as well on some of the top 10 films. So feel free to jump into the live chat. We'll be looking at that as we go. We also have some listeners who submitted their picks ahead of time through social media when we sent out an ask for those last week. So we're excited to share listener picks with you as well. I've already talked a lot, so I'm going to give myself time to breathe by introducing my co-host. Jim Pugliafico is here with us. Hey, babe, how's it going?
Hey, babe, how you doing?
I'm good. How are you?
How you doing? Good. I'm excited actually for this show. It's probably my favorite show of the year. You know why?
Why?
Because we get to talk about the movies we loved the most this year, right? And nothing but that. So that's going to be pretty awesome, right? I mean, it was a struggle getting here to the top 10, and we'll talk about that a little bit like we always do, but now that we're here, it's going to be awesome to talk about these movies that we love.
Absolutely agree. It's a bit of a love fest. We don't do it often, but when we do it, it's always fun. So glad you're here for that, Jim. Also glad to have you here as well. Will, how's it going?
How are you doing?
I'm doing.
This is the best episode of the year. My absolute hands down favorite. This is the episode where we are celebrating a whole year of great films. You know, there are so many fantastic movies that come out any given year, and it's very easy to kind of go through a year and maybe only think about one or two or three or kind of like the major films or the most recent films or whatever. But as you're going to see from our lists, we have very, very, very different picks. I would say that there's like probably 25 or more different films on our three top 10 lists combined, which means there are a lot of films to choose from. So I love this episode. This is where we get to celebrate just things that I'm glad that we watched, or the things that I recommend that you, whoever's listening to this, track down and watch after this.
Absolutely. You can consider this episode one giant plugs segment, essentially, because we're going to be hitting you with 25 plus films. Will, you mentioned, putting our list together and kind of figuring all that out. I definitely would love to maybe chat a little bit with you guys in terms of how you put your list together. What was your thinking process? Are they ranked 1 to 10 sequentially? What was your process? And let's start with Jim. How did your list come together, babe?
All right, I have a problem.
Uh-oh. All right, pause. Time out. What's going on?
Sorry, folks.
That's all good.
I thought it was a dramatic pause to show.
I did too.
There's like a moment where it's like, how'd yours go? Well, let me tell you, Brad. It's still going. Wow, this pregnant pause.
I have this issue where, like, when I use a Bluetooth device in my ear, like these AirPods, right? It'll switch between my phone and my computer, like just randomly. So if I click on a link, like the link that Will sends me for the show, it automatically switches over to that feed, which is
weird.
3 minutes behind what we just did. So it's
goodness.
And then I got to figure out what's going on and switch it back. But I'm back.
No worries. Well, at least for editing, this will be really easy because there's like a 15-second pause, so you can just find right where it cut off.
Okay. Oh, yeah, and I know now, so we can make some really big spikes or something like that. I don't know.
All right. We are going to rewind things. And, well, actually, first, Hamstrat is with us in the live chat. He says, howdy, dudes. Hey, Hammy. Good to see
Howdy,
you.
dude.
Howdy,
All right.
Duty.
So, Jim, tell us a little bit about how you came to your list. How did you put it together? Are things ranked sequentially? Is it just kind of a pool of 10 films? What was your process?
Look, I am now again a Letterboxd super user, right? Because I actually have been away from Letterboxd for several years now. And through, of course, Will is like a Letterboxd guru, right? And babe, with your help, I got back on the Letterboxd train. So I used Letterboxd to like log all the movies I watched this year and the rankings, and I used that to help me put it together. But lo and behold, I ended up with like 35 movies in the running for my top 10. And I managed to whittle it down to the 10. But I can tell you right now that when we get through the top 10 and later on when we talk about our honorable mentions, I guarantee you when I mention some of these films, in my mind, I'm going, that film should have been in the top 10. That film should have been in the top 10. So yeah, that's going to happen. But I mean, these are just basically the films I love the most this year. And that's what we're going to talk about. Yeah, it's hard to put them 1 to 10. And I'm not so sure that if you ask me tomorrow, it wouldn't be a different order. But that's the price we pay for doing that terrible thing of watching too many movies.
Well, I think it's fair to say that this is a snapshot in time of what you think and feel, but we'll put a little asterisk. All choices are subject to change,
Right.
especially since you may not have seen all of the movies that came out in 2022. Maybe you see it later. Maybe it changes your list retroactively, but it sounds like you've got something to go with for now, which is the important thing. Will, how about you? How did you approach your list?
Yeah, so one of the advantages I've got is, like Jim, you mentioned, I use Letterboxd a lot, right? So one of the things that I do is through the course of the year, I just sort of gut instinct put any new film that I've watched that was released that year roughly in order of where I want it. So I've actually got, coming into this episode, my top 151 list because that's how many films I saw of 2022 releases in 2022. That doesn't make it definitive, though. Like you mentioned, this is a snapshot in time. So then I sit down at the end of it and I take about those top 30 and say, all right, what on here really stuck with me? What sort of like tapered off after I had a little bit of distance from it? What resonates in a way that I think is important for me, for the year, for the things that I saw, what made me laugh, what scared me. There's no science to it because there can't be. It's all opinions, and opinions are super subjective. But I sat down and I sort of whittled that list down to the 10 that I feel most represent what I enjoyed about film this year. I've already done an episode of this on another show, and it was a different list, right? So it's a snapshot in time. You call back tomorrow, you come back in a week, that number 11 film is now my number 6 film, and that's okay. No one's going to come back later and say, excuse me, Brad, you said this was your 5th favorite movie in the 2022 episode, and yet you've listed as one of your top 3 films of the year. Which is it, Brad? Which is it? So all that to say, this show is just fun. These are the 10 films that I want to really celebrate today.
Wait, are you comic guy from The Simpsons? Is that what's happening right now?
Worst comic guy impression ever.
Comic guy.
Awesome. Well, I'm definitely looking forward to hearing your picks, Jim, yours as well. I think similar to you guys, I also use Letterboxd to put my list together. I feel like this episode should be Letterboxd, but we don't have any official affiliation with them.
No,
yet.
unfortunately,
No. Maybe someday. Who knows? But I had kind of put movies that really impacted me over 2022 into Letterboxd. I didn't log everything that I saw, but what I did, Jim keeps a running tally before he got back on the Letterboxd train of everything he sees in a note document on iOS. And babe, thank you for sharing that with me.
How old school is that?
I know. So I went back and I just retroactively plugged everything in with the release dates in wide release, and then gave ratings. But I had kind of like the top 20 movies already kind of cemented. It was really easy after I did that just to sort everything, get that pool of like top 15 films. But yeah, like you guys mentioned, 10-1 is a very fluid thing. Some of my honorable mentions were almost my number 10. So, you could swap things in and out very easily. I just feel lucky to have so many great films from last year that made our list. Whatever slot they ended up in, obviously they were good enough, enjoyable enough to us. They made an impression, so here they are. So, with all of that said and out of the way, Jim, Will, are you ready to get this mofo started?
Yeah.
Hell yeah.
All right. I will say up front that we are going to talk about these films very, very briefly. We're going to, give you the name of the movie. We'll kind of give you a little bit of description of what the movie was about. We'll talk a little bit about what we liked. But guys, are we doing spoilers on these since we kind of want people to check these movies out?
Yeah, I mean, no.
I don't think we have to, really.
Yeah, we're doing log lines and emotions, not deep dives.
Yeah, absolutely. So there you go. So with all that said, here we go. Our top 10 films of 2022. All right, Will, if you don't mind, kick us off. What was your number 10?
Number 10. Yeah, so my number 10 film is a movie called Broker, directed by Hirokazu Koreeda. This is a film by, so Koreeda is a filmmaker who gave us a movie a few years ago that was also in my top 20 or wherever it ended up falling, called Shoplifters, an amazing film. Broker follows these two men, one of which is played by Song Kang-ho, who played the lead in Parasite, the father in Parasite. These two guys basically sell babies on the black market, and it sounds worse than it is, I guess. They take sort of like abandoned at like church doorstep babies at this orphanage, and they find families that normally wouldn't be able to adopt or normally wouldn't go through the process, and they sort of rehome them into those. One day, a baby shows up at the place that they have the deal to get these babies and sell them on. And the mother, a young woman, comes back the next morning and says, "Hey, I know what you're trying to do, and I'd like to get in on this." Right? So they and the mother, and then this kid that they come across along the way, end up trying to find the perfect family for this baby, and they end up forming kind of a family unit of their own along the way. It's incredibly touching, incredibly heartwarming movie. I love every single one of the performances in this. You also have as kind of this detective that's following this, Bae Doona, who, if anyone remembers from Cloud Atlas or The Host, just several really good movies. Dude, Koreeda makes great movies. Broker is just an absolutely fantastic one. It brokered my heart in a bunch of pieces. I love these movies. It broke guest. I love movies about found families. I think that's something that's very unique about the queer experience overall that we can relate to. This movie is like, if you put one part of like Parasite and maybe a little part of Little Miss Sunshine and put them in a blender, and that's what you get on the other side of it. Really great movie. It's Broker. Strongly recommended.
Yeah, Will.
All right.
Good pick. I did see this one too. It reminded me, it was made by the same filmmaker, so it's very much like Shoplifters, I think.
Yeah.
At least in my mind. Yeah. And the quality is up there too.
All right. Awesome. Thank you so much, Will. Let's go to Jim. And we'll just say this. We have 25 plus movies to get through, so we may pare down some of the details as we go, but we'll try and give you the essential information we need to know. We just don't want to be here for 5 hours, and I don't think anybody has that attention span. So we'll try to be good to you, listeners. We promise. Jim, what is your number 10?
Right. And, hopefully listeners have maybe seen some of these movies, like this one. This one was a big one for the year. This one is Nope. This one is Jordan Peele's sci-fi slash thriller movie. This is the first of three horror adjacent, I guess, films this year on my list. This one was like an event film, right? We were all waiting for this and really, this one was really hyped up and looking forward to it. We saw it, and this one definitely lived up to the hype. This one, as more I think about it, there's a lot of like Close Encounters vibe to this, which is a good thing. And it has, kind of both horror and wonder, kind of, at the phenomena or the strange happenings that are going on in the film. And it definitely leaves you with a sense that you've seen something really cool. And I want to see more films like this, whether from Jordan Peele or somebody else. But Nope is my number 10 of the year. Nope. Yes.
So it sounds like Nope was a yep for you, Jim.
Nope was a yep for me. It made my list. It was one of those that flipped back and forth between honorable mention and number 10 a couple times, and this is where it landed.
Awesome. I have a feeling that this movie might come up later in the show, so maybe we'll bank a little time and
it might
leave time for more discussion later on. Awesome.
Okay.
My number 10 film. You guys are probably going to laugh at me for this pick, but it is what it is. I've done a lot of soul searching. I questioned a lot of my honorable mentions against this movie, and it still came out on top for the number 10 slot. This movie was called Dog and starred Channing Tatum and his canine friend. Here's the IMDb description. Two former Army Rangers are paired against their will on the road trip of a lifetime. Briggs, played by Channing Tatum, and Lulu the dog race down the Pacific coast to get to a fellow soldier's funeral on time. I will just tell you, I am not typically a dog person. We took a friend to see this who is super into dogs. We figured it would just be a cute thing to do for an afternoon. And I cried like 3 times in this movie. And movies that make me cry typically like wend their way up my list. So this one did it for me. It had a lot of fun moments between Channing Tatum and the dog that they got to play, Lulu. A lot of heartfelt moments too. And it's interesting. I think the best performance in the movie is from the dog. And it made me very curious about how, dogs are trained to act in films. And I started to look into that a little bit. And then I'm like, I got to stop, because if you know how things are made too deeply, it kind of, loses some of the magic for you. So I'm just sitting back and accepting the magic that this brought to me. So I love this one quite a bit. That was my number 10.
So Brad, you're saying you don't want to hear how the sausage is made?
No, I don't want to hear how the sausage is made. It's just important to me that the sausage goes to the right puppo for being a good doggy.
Yeah.
Hey, listen, and this might be, people may look, Brad, I love this pick. It was considered for my list too, as we'll find out later. But like, Tatum O'Neal, Channing Tatum puts in a really great performance in this movie, I think. And it's hidden in a movie that a lot of people might kind of throw away and dismiss because it's a dog movie, it's a man and dog movie. But like, he puts in, you could tell he puts in the effort in this one, and that's really appreciated. Kind of a more downplayed character based on what we've seen Channing Tatum play in the past. So yeah, I really dug this one too.
We're gonna have to do top 10 dog movies as a future episode.
Ooh, only if
I'm
we
down.
can also do top 10 cat movies to balance it out.
We can also do that movies. One. The problem with top 10 dog ones is, for me, all the dogs are good boys. So it's like, how do I decide? But we'll get there.
Also, do you include movies where the dogs die? Because I don't know. That's hard. That's hard.
Yeah,
we'll talk about it.
Yeah,
Future idea, but I like it. I like it a lot. As I mentioned at the start of the show, we also had some listeners who gave us their top 10 lists. We're going to be sharing some of those picks as we go round by round. So starting in the number 10 slot, friend of the show, Simon Tolhurst. Aw, we love Simon. He chose Turning Red as his number 10 pick. Turning Red was good times, Simon. Strong pick for your list. Also, a note about Simon's picks, because someone kind of ragged on him on Facebook about this.
That came out
Simon,
last year.
I know. Simon lives in Australia, and they get films on a whole different timeline than they come out in other parts of the world, including here in the United States. So if one of his picks happens to be from 2021, shut the fuck up. It's okay. There, that's said. All right. Thanks so much for submitting your pick, Simon. Let's head on back to Will for your number 9 pick, Will.
All right. So my number 9 pick is sort of an odd one in that I actually saw this one back in 2019. But this one sat in 1 in sort of festival land, and then 2 in it hasn't been picked up for distribution until January of this year when it was released on Shudder. And that film is The Long Walk by director Matty Doe.
Wait, well, you said 2019?
Yeah.
Wow, that is a long walk.
That is a lot. Yeah. I see what you did there.
Oh.
The Long Walk is Matty Doe's 3rd film. She's a Laotian filmmaker. She's making Laotian horror, which doesn't exist really prior to Matty. This movie stars this, or tells a story about this like Laotian hermit who discovers this ghost walking along this road where there was an accident that the ghost was involved in. And by walking with this ghost, he's able to transport back to basically a different time in his life, an earlier time in his life where he as a boy also walked alongside this ghost. And back in the past, he dealt with his mother's death. And so it's a movie about, it's technically a time travel movie. It's technically a horror movie, but it's, as much as anything, it's a movie about, you know, the consequences of trying to capture something that's gone, trying to change something that can't be changed, and not being able to let go of something that needs to be moved on from. It's haunting, but not in a scary way, more in a kind of a soulful way. I absolutely adore this movie. It's The Long Walk. It's on Shudder. Matty Doe is one of those like rare, unique talents who I'm hoping we start to see blow up as she gets to do more and more and more things. So this is a chance to get it on the ground floor and say, you knew her when.
Good pick. Well, I based on your recommendation, I did catch up with this one, and really well done film. I just wish, I wish I was like could handle the time travel stuff. It was, oh God, there's a lot. I mean, I love the soulfulness of like the relationships in this movie, and you know, I think it's beautifully photographed, and the characters are really well done. But it jumped around a little bit on me, and that wore me out just a little.
Sign of a good movie sometimes, if it can.
Yeah, I know.
Out.
I wish I had caught it like in a movie theater. You know what I mean? Like,
yeah.
I think that might have helped.
Mm.
Will, was this a festival for you?
It was the first time through, but then I kind of refound it on, not just on Shudder, but then this is one of those rare ones where I was like, I need this Blu-ray. So
it is out there. I was able to watch it on something other than Shudder. I know that. It's like Apple TV Plus or something. Yeah.
Cool. Well, thank you so much for your number 9. Jim, what clocked in at number 9 for you?
Number 9 for me was the second of my horror adjacent movies to make the list of 3, and I'll get to the third one later. But this is The Black Phone. Was to me, it was a really well done like thriller mystery about a string of child abductions done, but it was done from the children's perspective. Like this was like kids, in like middle school age kids or whatever were being targeted by a serial kidnapper, basically. This is another one that had like a cool mid 80s vibe that I'm a sucker for. I really dig that stuff. And also had an off the beaten path performance by Ethan Hawke in this. And I don't think it's a spoiler to talk about that. It's all in the trailer. This was a really surprising and wonderful surprise, I guess, to watch in a theater this year, and I'm glad we got to see it. So it's The Black Phone is my number 9.
Man, such a strong pick, Jim. This one didn't quite make my top 10. It may show up in my honorable mentions. We'll see. But I really liked this film quite a lot as well, especially the fact that it was from the kid's perspective as opposed to sort of external. I don't want to say much more for fear of going into spoilers, but I think that was a really strong creative choice. So love this pick.
And anyone who ends up liking this movie, I'd also strongly recommend checking out. This is based off of a short story by Joe Hill, who has these stories that are very punchy. You know, his short stories are very punchy. They get in, they tell the story, and they sometimes leave it off in the middle of the action. So you're kind of like, you know, left wanting more. The entire collection that short story is found in, they're all like 5-star banger stories. So I'd strongly recommend tracking that down.
Mm-hmm. All right. Awesome. Moving on to my number 9. In this slot, I chose a film directed by Matt Reeves, starring Robert Pattinson, Zoe Kravitz, and Jeffrey Wright. That, of course, being The Batman. And here's the IMDb description. When a sadistic serial killer begins murdering key political figures in Gotham, Batman is forced to investigate the city's hidden corruption and question his own family's involvement. That was my best Robert Pattinson Batman voice. It wasn't very good, but I tried. This movie really tripped a lot of triggers for me. I've loved the character of Batman ever since I was a kid. Obviously, a long string of Batman movies have come before this one. But I felt like this film really put Batman as a detective at the forefront of what was going on. You know, he's regarded as the world's greatest detective, maybe even more so than Sherlock Holmes. And man, did this movie do a banging job of showing us just how great a detective he is, from the clues that he finds to, you know, the structuring of his thinking and how he kind of unravels that and you know, works with some allies in the film. We'll just leave it at that, to try and track down sort of the root cause of the mystery plaguing the film. I think they did a phenomenal job here. I was a little worried about Robert Pattinson as Batman. I mean, he's been great in other things, but Batman is just such a huge character. I think it would be hard for anyone to step into that role. But holy shit, did he do a great job. And I can't wait for the Batman 2 whenever we get that. That's my number 9.
You know, it's funny, like I've been really wanting DC. I'm a DC Comics fan as much as I'm a Marvel Comics fan, and I don't know. It's, for me personally, it's been hard to be like a DC Comics fan when I go to the movies, because there's just been a lot of stuff that has not clicked as well with me. But the Batman absolutely did. Great choice, Brad. And honestly, speaking of great choices, one of our listeners and friends of the show, Peter Beta, who also does the Middle Class Film Class podcast, also picked the Batman as his number 9 slot. So you guys are lining up there, Brad.
We're
Nice.
we're totally on the same wavelength. I love it.
Yeah.
You're catching his battering.
Woot.
One of the few superhero movies in the last several years that I've kind of really dug. Like, and I think it was just the different approach that it kind of played out more like a detective thriller. And it just hit maybe better with me, you know, who's not so much of a comic fan. It seemed more grounded in truth and reality a little bit. Yeah. And I mean, I talk about reality with Batman, right? But like, you know, it just seemed a little bit more grounded than a lot of those properties are. And that's why I really liked it. So that's a good pick.
Awesome. All right. Well, let's move on to our number 8s, and we'll have you kick off the order. What was yours?
All right. The number 8 slot. Yeah. So this is my, gosh, I promise you they're not all foreign language films. But my first
They are.
were, the first 3 are. So this is the new film by Park Chan-wook. Park Chan-wook, as a director, has given us a lot of fantastic films, including Old Boy and very recently The Handmaiden. You get to see him do stuff with like Snowpiercer, Stoker. He's been involved in several different things. This movie here is called Decision to Leave, and it's a story about this detective who is trying to investigate this man's death. And so he's doing these interviews with the man's wife. And the two of them have this sort of like cat and mouse power play type things in their reactions. Not in that one is like actively like chasing the other and hiding from the other. It's a movie ultimately that's about two people kind of coming together and sort of finding chemistry with one another, but also what that means. But there's a lot of like elusiveness in their conversations they have with one another. This is a fantastic little crime thriller, fantastic little detective story, fantastic romance, and a fantastic movie that just sort of leaves you breathless by the end of it. Its Decision to Leave. I know that you can track it down in a few different places. I know that it's sort of got it was Mubi's, MUBI's like big release. So if you have a Mubi account, you can go see it there. But it's other places too. So I strongly recommend it. Decision to Leave is just a stunningly perfect film.
Well, this is one that I'd heard about and was on my list of movies to try to watch before I made my list, and I just did not make it to this one. So I will still watch it and let you know if I regret not having watched it before I made my list.
Or if you decide to leave in the middle of the movie.
If you decide to leave. Well, if
I decide to leave, yeah.
If you do, then I want to hear that too.
Okay.
Tell me why.
Doesn't happen a lot. But yeah.
That's true. That's true. All right. Well, thank you so much for your number 8. Jim, what's yours?
Well, since we're on the foreign language film train, I might as well jump on with you, Will. My 8th movie is called Hit the Road. This one was a late watch for me also. I mean, I caught up with a lot of movies really just over the last few weeks. Watched this one a couple weeks ago. It's a kind of a road movie about this family, husband and wife, older son and younger son, on a car journey across rugged and mysterious. I'm not even sure what country it is. They may have said in the film, for a mysterious meetup for reasons that really aren't known in the film until very late. This is kind of a really great blending of like family comedy and like hijinks road movie mixed with much more serious undertones. This movie has layers, and I love that in film. This one is a real gem that I just kind of stumbled upon. I saw some people talk about it, and I'm like, hit the road, man. I gotta see that. Oh God, this one I can't say too much without spoiling it, because it's one of those movies that kind of reveals itself as it goes on. But I thought the performances were great. The storytelling was wonderful. It wasn't overly long. Yeah, I just liked it. It's called Hit the Road.
All right.
Did anybody else see that one? I wonder.
No, not yet, because I know it's playing on Canopy, and I've got to renew my since
Your
I moved.
library
I
card?
have to read. I moved a couple years ago, and right before the pandemic, and decided, I'm not going to go to the library during the pandemic, so I've got an expired library card. So
I want to hear what you think of this one when you watch it. It's a great watch.
Based off what I know, it looks like one of those films that's 1,000% up my alley. So I'm excited to see it.
Cool.
Rock on. All right. Thanks, Jim.
Brad.
All right. Number 8 was a little film directed by Robert Eggers and involves a whole lot of man flesh, which I am totally okay with. This film was The Northman and stars Alexander Skarsgård and Nicole Kidman. The IMDb description is really short here. Essentially, it says, a young Viking prince is on a quest to avenge his father's murder. Holy fuck, does that sound like 1,000 other movies, out there. This is definitely, without going into spoilers, revenge is a big element of this film, but it's also kind of a character journey for the main character, members of his family, people he encounters during his journey. it's really complex. It has a lot of layers to it. It's not just like a sword and sandal action movie. It's not just Vikings beating the shit out of each other. There's a lot to it going into this film. Of course, Robert Eggers has brought us some incredible films previous to this, The Witch being one of my favorites. So I was like, Robert Eggers doing a Viking movie? This is going to be interesting. But totally knocked it out of the park for me. Really, really enjoyed this one. Plus, again, man flesh. That can't be, overstated. So just be aware. It's a thing that you might enjoy.
Swinging swords and swinging dicks, right? We just like, it's got it all. But yeah, this one like creates a really rugged atmosphere. Like rugged might not be the word, but like really intense, rugged atmosphere. And that's what I like most about this one.
Oh yeah, absolutely. This is a brutal film, not just in like the action or whatever. I mean, we've seen plenty of like brutal action and horror movies, but I think brutal in just how unrelenting the world and the mythology of the Northmen is. Really good pick. This one was in my short list. Didn't quite make it on, but it was one of the ones that was in the consideration because it's that damn good.
Mm-hmm. It is. And for listener pick, we have one from Andrew Martin. His eighth movie, or ranked eighth movie, is a movie called Marcel the Shell with Shoes On. And I'm not going to go too much into that movie other than a quick description that says it's a feature adaptation of an animated short film involving a mollusk named Marcel. So basically, you do have a shell with shoes on. Kind of a coming of age film for mollusks, I guess. But yeah, this one was really well done. Kind of brings you into a totally different world through its use of stop animation and characterization of this the title character Marcel. But yeah, we're going to maybe talk more about this later. So I probably should save it.
May not be a bad idea. I have a feeling it's going to come up.
Good pick, Andrew, though. Yeah.
Yeah, for sure. All right, let's move on to our number 7s. Will, what was your number 7 pick?
Number 7 is The Banshees of Ed Sheeran. Nope, sorry, I read that wrong. It's The Banshees of Inisherin. This movie is directed by it's his brother. It's directed by Martin McDonagh, who did In Bruges. Absolutely love In Bruges. Did 3 Billboards. This movie stars Colin Farrell and Brendan Gleeson. They're these two friends. They've lived together on this island for years, just keeping each other company and sharing stories and talking. They're friends. And then one day, Brendan Gleeson's character decides to just end their friendship, which absolutely baffles Colin Farrell's character. And that sort of leads to them having some clashes and also some self-discovery in this sort of almost dark fairy tale type story, but without
allegory.
It being like allegory. It's not necessarily mystical or magical, but it sort of does have that lyrical quality to it. Dude, this movie's awesome. I love the performances. I think Brendan Gleeson and Colin Farrell both do amazing work here. This movie only works if that you believe both of these characters and kind of what they're getting and what they're wanting out of their lives and out of their relationships. You do get that. The elements where this movie gets dark, and it does get dark as fuck, work as well, because in some places it feels a little dark comedy, but in other places you can feel just sort of like the desperation of what's happening. There's a lot of layers to this movie. This is another one of those movies that's, like an onion, or I guess like ogres. It's got a lot of layers. The more you peel back, the more you uncover them. But the Banshees of Inisherin, I honestly think is Martin McDonagh sort of like, I like 3 Billboards, but I do feel like this is sort of a return to like the best elements of the stagey qualities that he does in his stage play stuff that we saw in Bruges and that we get to see here. So Banshees of Inisherin, really damn good.
So good. Will, and you didn't even mention like there's 4 legitimately great performances in this movie.
Oh yeah.
Colin Farrell, Brendan Gleeson, Kerry Condon, and Barry
Keoghan.
Kean, right? Just amazing cast. I'm not going to say any more at this moment.
Yeah, let's come back to this one in
Yeah.
about 25, 30 minutes.
Okay. I'm pretty sure this is gonna come up again. All right, Jim, let's go to you. What was your number 7 pick?
Well, I said I had 3 horror adjacent films on my list this year. This is the third one, and in my book, slightly above the other 2 that I mentioned. The other 2 being Nope and The Black Phone. This one is called Barbarian. This one kind of like hit me in the side of the head when we saw it. I wasn't expecting a thing when we saw this movie, knew nothing about it. And that's the best way to go into this movie. This one had a truly creepy vibe that like gets rocked up to 11 at certain points in the movie. And it felt different. This movie felt different than a lot of other like horror films in that like it used storytelling techniques that like didn't really like tease or pull punches and definitely kept the audience like off balance, like had sudden left turns. Keep leaving the audience in the dust saying what the fuck is happening. And it did kind of it came through on those promises to kind of wrap it all up. I love the feeling that I got from this movie. Surprised me. I loved it, and that's a lot for a horror movie to end up this far on my list. It's called Barbarian. If you haven't seen it, check it out.
Oh man, this is such a great pick, Jim. This one totally just hit me over the head in a good way. I didn't think this was going to be that great from looking at the trailer. You know, the basic premise of an Airbnb and 2 people are booked for the same Airbnb.
A bad night in an Airbnb.
Yeah. Turning into a horror crazy mess. It was kind of like, all right, I'll see it, whatever. But it ended up being really, really good. Did not make my list, but I mean, it was close. It was in the running. So great pick.
Definitely one of those movies where a great pick as well. The best advice you can honestly take when it comes to this movie is read nothing going into it, know nothing going into it. Just experience it, because this movie goes
like
places,
holy
right?
Shit
and so just let yourself strap into the ride and be taken along.
Great way of describing that for sure. All right,
number 7, Brad.
My number 7, I'm starting to sense a theme with some of these picks. Another revenge-centric movie. This is directed by Gina Prince Bythewood, stars Viola Davis, Thuso Mbedu, and Lashana Lynch. IMDb description of The Woman King, a historical epic inspired, that's very important, it's inspired by true events, that took place in the Kingdom of Dahomey, one of the most powerful states of Africa in the 18th and 19th centuries. If you watch the trailer for this film, African village is attacked. These powerful, amazing women warriors take up arms for the tribe and go on a journey that, they hope will lead them to taking some revenge and putting some things to rights. Man, the performances in this film were just fantastic. We've seen Viola Davis in a lot of things over the years. She is an absolute treasure. But if you had asked me if I thought I'd see Viola Davis like as the action star centerpiece of a film, I don't know that I would have bought that necessarily based on some of her previous performances. But holy fucking shit, did she do an amazing job with this? It's not just an action movie. Again, kind of similar to The Northman. It's complex. It's got layers to it. There's some really interesting things, going on in terms of relations between the tribe and external powers, and even relations and politics within the tribe. There's a little bit of Game of Thrones thrown in there that I really enjoyed seeing the tribal politics kind of play out. This is a really great performance by Lashana Lynch as well. Man, she is tearing it up over the last couple years. She was really fantastic in this too. Just a great film, I think, for you to seek out. Just keep in mind, because there was some controversy about this film, that it is inspired by true events. It is not based on true events. It is not the absolute gospel of truth when it comes to what actually happened. Someone in Hollywood was like, hey, this historical thing sounds really cool. Let's punch this up to 11 and make an awesome movie. So there you go. My number 7.
You know, you mentioned Lashana Lynch. Want to co-sign that. You know, I think she gave one of the strongest non-nominated performances of the year. She's really, really good in this. And I'd also recommend, if you like musicals, there's the Matilda the musical that came out this year. You can stream it, and Lashana Lynch is in that, and she's also just absolutely charming and adorable. So.
Yeah, she was my favorite part of Matilda. She was amazing in that. So, yeah, for sure.
You mentioned Lashana Lynch and Viola Davis, and they were amazing in here. But can you imagine how amazing they would have been if they had little wings on their feet? Can you imagine?
You mean if we turned this into a Marvel movie?
Yeah, exactly.
No, let's please never have that happen.
I mean, to be fair, which one of the movies on our lists would not be made more interesting with little wings on the feet? Can you imagine if Channing Tatum's like, "Come here, dog," and the dog has little wings?
And he flies away.
You know, so you know, the Northman with little wings on his feet. That's literally all of these movies is just waiting for little wings on the feet.
Yeah.
I think.
All right, listen. If we have any listeners out there who are skilled with, you know, creating effects in movie clips, maybe you could take all of our top 10 film picks and just add little wings to a character from the footage, and we'll broadcast that on our YouTube channel. There you go. Hey, we've got a listener pick. Speaking of listeners, Bruce Perky has a little movie called X as his number 7. I have not seen X. I can't speak to its quality, but I can speak to Bruce Perky's quality. He's amazing. He has great taste in films. So if this ended up on his list, probably a damn good one.
X and Pearl. It's been a very good year for Ty West and for Mia Goth.
For sure. All right, let's move on to our number 6s. Will, top of the order, my friend. Go for it.
Yeah, so this has also been a very good year for Cate Blanchett, who stars in Todd Field's latest music-inspired drama called Tar. This movie is set in the world of classical music, and Cate Blanchett plays this conductor named Lydia Tarr. She's considered to be one of the best composers and conductors who is currently alive today. She's in the fiction of the story. She's won an EGOT, you know, being able to win all of the major awards at all of the major shows. And through the course of the film, she's granted this like sort of prestigious spot in this like German orchestra, but she's also got a lot of narcissism or ego or just power related issues, however you want to look at them within the confines of the film. And you see how she both clashes against those while being in the public eye, while seeing the impact that has to the people around her and to her career and to her legacy, as she sort of embeds herself and entrenches herself more and more in some of these negative behaviors. Fantastic movie. This is Cate Blanchett just absolutely firing on all cylinders. I mean, I find it hard to find an actively bad Cate Blanchett performance. You know, she's solid, right? But she gets to just act her ass off and chew every scene here. This is a film that is not afraid to let the dialogue scenes linger. You can sometimes sit inside of an interview for several minutes, just like someone interviewing the Lydia Tarr character, and realize like I've been watching this scene for like 10 minutes, but it's always compelling. It's always engaging. It always moves. It's called Tar. It's very, very good. It's 2 hours and 40 minutes. So, you know, strap in, you know, take a pee break, you know, get yourself a snack first. But it's 2 hours and 40 minutes that, at least to me, absolutely flew by.
Yeah, her performance in this was really good. This is another one I caught up too late. Didn't make my list, but her performance definitely a standout.
All right. Strong pick. Will, thank you so much. Jim, what was your number 6?
My number 6 is a film called Empire of Light. This one, Look, we know that we have Oscar winner Olivia Colman, right? She's amazing, but her performance in this movie, to me at least, is a standout even for her. Like, I loved her performance in this movie. This is a story of like an emotionally damaged and introverted woman who happens to work in a movie theater in the UK back during the time of racial unrest in the early 80s in the UK. Um, and it's just so well done. It's not necessarily the racial tensions in the UK do touch on the characters in this movie, but it's not really about that. It's really about Olivia Colman's character and kind of the isolation she feels, and that kind of they build this little world inside this movie theater that really jumps off the screen. And also it's also about a love of movies, and the way this movie portrays this passion for movies by the characters who work in this movie house, I really liked. um and also on top of that, this one has probably the best cinematography of the year in any film this year, by who? Guess who? Roger Deakins.
Freaking Deacons.
Freaking Deakins, right? Like, it looks amazing. I haven't caught up to many of the Oscar stuff, but that's one I'll be pulling for. One category I'll be pulling for this year. It's called Empire of Light.
Yeah, Olivia Colman is amazing in this. It's a movie that tries to tackle a lot of different things, has a lot of things that it's going for here. And of course, Olivia Colman is a strong enough actress to balance all of those. Of course, everyone in this film that she's acting against and with, steps up to the plate and does a great job. Yeah, really good pick, Jim.
Yep, cool.
All right. Well, for me, my number 6 is a movie directed by Nicholas Stoller, starring Billy Eichner and Luke McFarlane, and that movie is Bros. Here's the description for those who are unfamiliar. Bobby is a neurotic podcast host who's content not to have a serious relationship, but that all changes when he meets Aaron, an equally detached lawyer who likes to play the field. Repeatedly drawn together, both men begin to show their vulnerable sides as their attraction deepens. I gotta tell you, this movie hits for me on a lot of different levels. One, really great to have such like major studio power LGBTQ representation. Most of the cast of this film are members of the queer community, which I think is fantastic. I'm not really a big fan of Billy Eichner, like in his Billy in the Street and some of the other things he's done. But when the trailer for this film came out, I don't know, it kind of spoke to me a little bit. As somebody who has been on plenty of dates in his lifetime before finding the man of his dreams, who I'm lucky to do a podcast with. I know what it's like to play
Thanks,
the field,
Brad.
and I know what it's like to kind of play the field and think that you're not going to find that person, and then it unexpectedly maybe happens to you, and craziness ensues. I really liked Billy Eichner in this film. Loved Luke McFarlane here too. He's a Brothers and Sisters alum. If anybody ever watched that sappy primetime soap opera, I forget what channel that was on, but that was the Sally Field show, and she was amazing on that too. Anyway, she's not in this movie. Doesn't matter. But he totally bulked up since the last time I saw him. He used to be this skinny little thing, and now he is very muscular and chef's kiss. I like a lot of different types of guys. Muscles are included in that. So it was interesting to see these two guys come together. I think this movie, it's in the trailer, it handles things like threesomes and foursomes, and it takes sort of an unabashed view of gay life. Even though, I'm not a big muscle guy, and I'm not a skinny otter, it still kind of speaks to my life. Also, there is a big guy character in this who not only gets some action, but he's really fucking funny too. And I thought it was a really cool representation of big people in a film, especially an LGBT film. So really, really cool. That is my number 6.
Great pick. Didn't make my list, but one of the things that we talk about a lot on the show is representation matters, right? And what we had here with Bros was a ostensibly sort of like a mainstream rom-com, right? But with queer trappings and with polyamory and with just the idea of sort of like a lot of these different things that are very part and parcel to our lives layered in and layered on. I think that's cool. I think that's cool that we got that here in 2022. And I think that that's cool that could open more doors too. I know it didn't perform as well theatrically as it should have. That's a shame. I think more people should have rushed out to see this, but there's always life. There's life in streaming, and there's life in the kind of the cult film market.
Yeah, who knows? Maybe we'll live to see a day when movies like this, who are unabashedly, LGBT relationships, and not just romantic relationships, but friendships, and how LGBT people are integrated into communities. That those movies will, be fully accepted in the in movie houses across all audiences. I'm not sure we're there yet, but this film, I think, is a step, and I'm glad this film is there. I really enjoyed this film this year.
All right. Sweet.
Okay, and let's talk about another pick, this time by Eric Holmes. We love Eric here on the MBP. You can catch him over at the Cinematics podcast, and his choice is Sagasu, which is also translated to be Missing. Not the Missing that is the sequel of Searching, the John Cho movie. This is a different one. This is a Japanese kind of drama thriller about this girl searching for her father, and there's serial killers involved. There's a lot of different things to look for there. Really, really cool pick. Thanks so much I know, Eric, you've been championing this one, so check out Sagasu or Missing and give it a try.
Will, is this one a live action or animated?
Live action.
Okay, cool. It's on my list then.
Woohoo. Oh,
not that I don't watch animated films, but
yeah. But if it had been, you'd have been like,
I was confusing it with something else. Yeah.
All right. We are at the top part of our top 10s. We are at our top 5. And we're narrowing things down at this point. Let's go to Will again. Will, what was your number 5 pick?
Ooh, number 5. Yeah, we are getting down into the nitty gritty. I picked Women Talking for my number 5 pick. This is a movie by Sarah Polley. Also, we're fans of Sarah Polley on MBP. This movie stars a lot of fantastic women. It's got Rooney Mara, Claire Foy, Jessie Buckley, Frances McDormand. Ben Wishaw's in this as well. Yeah. Pooh. This is set in sort of like 2010, and these women in this very isolated religious community have recently dealt with a string of pretty brutal sexual assaults within the community. And they are given a choice. They're given some time to debate what they want to do by the men in the community, who all go away for the weekend. And these women sit in this barn, and they're basically debating 3 choices that they have. They can stay and do nothing, like as part of their religion, they should maybe just be okay with it. Maybe not okay with it, but understand that, there's not a lot that they can do or should do. They can fight back against the men, or they can leave the community and do something of their own accord. And this movie is just these women talking, hence the title, over the course of a weekend about what their options are and why they should choose them, and the different conflicting emotions and religious baggage and personal baggage that comes from their relationships that all comes into them having to make this collective decision together. My God, is it good. Again, it's just a movie about people sitting around talking, but it is such an engaging movie about people sitting around talking. You feel like the weight of their decision as they go through each and every sort of like counterpoint with one another. Yeah, I mean, if you're looking for something full of like, explosions and fast-paced action, you want to skip this one. But if you want something that really cuts to the meat of what it's trying to say, I think Women Talking is definitely that movie. So strongly recommended.
That's one, Will, I haven't gotten to catch up with yet. I think it's just hitting theaters here now. So on the list for next year.
Yeah, and that's going to be a good one. Again, because I know you're a Sarah Polley fan.
Absolutely.
Well, at least that's the story he tells.
Yeah.
All right. Solid pick. It sounds like. Well, I've heard great buzz around women talking, and of course, Sarah Polley's fantastic. Maybe I'll catch this one with you, Jim, and we'll see if it makes the list for next year, since it's coming out end of January here. But Jim, what is your number 6 or number 5? Excuse me.
Yeah, number 5. We're getting down to it. My number 5 pick is another late watch for me. It's called After Sun, all one word, After Sun. This one, I'll read the IMDb. Sophie reflects on the shared joy and private melancholy of a holiday she took with her father 20 years earlier. Memories, real and imagined, fill the gaps between as she tries to reconcile the father she knew with the man she didn't. This is, like I said, this is a seemingly quiet story told through like an 11-year-old or 12-year-old's view of this vacation she took with her dad at a resort one summer. And as the IMDb description says, it's about how we process and cherish memories from our childhood. Not everything is clearly spelled out in the movie, but there's enough here to leave us with a gut punch by the end. The two performances here are great. Paul Mescal and Frankie Carino, I think is her name. They're both incredible. This is a gem of a movie that I really love. I just love the whole way this is photographed and kind of the way the story is told. And it's quietly devastating, I will say. And I loved it. It's called After Sun.
Maybe I'll talk about this one in a little bit.
Okay. Maybe.
Put a pin in that for now.
Yeah,
but Jim, thank you so much for your number 5 pick. I didn't get to see this one with you, but you had glowing things to say about it. And there's several films that I need to catch up with. This might be one of them. So if I'm watching at the projector room, don't be surprised. All right. Okay. My number 5 movie is another gay relationship movie. How is it that I keep doing this?
This is the gay relationship section of Brad's list.
I guess. I got like 2 revenge movies, 2 gay relationship movies. What's going on with my life?
Just give us a heads up if you're going to ruin anything about this movie.
Yeah, I mean, typically I give a spoiler alert. But in this case, I'm not actually going to spoil things. We're all winking pretty heavily because my number 5 pick is a movie called Spoiler Alert. Directed by Michael Showalter, starring Jim Parsons from Big Bang Theory and Ben Aldridge. This is the story of Michael Ausiello and Kit Cowan's relationship, which takes a tragic turn when Cowan is diagnosed with terminal cancer. It's in the trailer. The movie makes you aware of this, right off the bat through the marketing for the film. And this is indeed very much a relationship movie. Again, great to have some, I think, really fantastic representation of the queer community in film in 2022. This movie gets my award for making me laugh and bawl my eyes out all in the same 30 minutes. It's hard for movies to do that to me, but this one certainly did. This is based on a true story, a real relationship. Did some reading about these two after the film, and I don't know, it really kind of spoke to me. Without going into spoilers, certain elements of their relationship that I felt were very true to life to some of my own relationships, even my current relationship. And I really appreciated the way that they approached the whole terminal cancer thing. I didn't feel like it was played for violin sympathies necessarily. It was just an honest, stark look at a situation and how these two guys who have love for one another dealt with that. And sort of looking at the process of, come to terms with those things and grief and all of that wrapped in one big blanket that somehow is also warm and snuggly. So that was my number 5 pick. Spoiler alert.
One of my favorite things about this movie is there is a scene in it that inspired a picture that I saw the two of you take around Christmas. So I really liked seeing that.
It's in the trailer, so I don't think it's a spoiler, right? We can say it.
Yeah, it's them sitting underneath a Christmas tree, sort of like looking up through the lights. And Brad and Jim took a similar picture around Christmas. And I thought that was cute.
Yeah, it's something I've done since I was a little boy. Yeah. And so when that scene came on, I'm like, oh my God, I did the same thing. Yeah.
How could we not recreate it? You know,
Right.
It just was a thing that had to happen. Yeah. Well, Jim, I think we have a listener pick for this slot, don't we?
We do. In the 5 slot, we have Simon again, our friend Simon from Australia, with his number 5 pick, a movie called RRR. And good pick, Simon. We're going to hold off a little bit, though, because I think we're going to talk about this movie in a little while, but it's good to see this movie popping up on lists. Yeah, this is one that is going to get more discussion later. I'm glad you liked it enough to put it on your list. Yeah, that's all I'm going to say for now.
All right. Thank you. Speaking of movies that we talk more about later, Will, did you maybe want to tell us a little bit about your number 4?
Absolutely. My number 4 is After Sun, which Jim mentioned in the previous round. I won't go too deep into it because Jim already did. But what I like so much about this movie is I think it captures this very familiar feeling that we experience as human beings, where we have these very we only are able to see the world through our own eyes, no matter who we're with or who we walk alongside or who we have in our family and who we have in our friend group. We're always kind of locked into this unique experience of only being able to see the world as ourselves. And sometimes that means that the memories that we have and the relationships that we have are colored through that lens, and without you truly understanding what the other person was going through at the time or what they were feeling. I love that. And this movie, while not beating you over the head with that theme, is also very much about that. And I found that by the end of the movie, just the weight of what it was going for really sat with me so much that it's one of those ones I sat with in the car in the parking lot after seeing it and just sort of like thought about for a moment before like turning the ignition and driving home. So After Sun is the goods. Really highly recommended.
Yeah. Still thinking about it.
How can I not watch this movie now? It's on both of your lists. I have to see this movie.
You know, who knows how it's going to land with different people.
Yeah.
You know?
But
or maybe it's your number 1. Yeah.
Who knows? It could blow my list apart, guys. Like my list could be in fucking smithereens after watching that movie.
You could watch After Sun and then Dog can get, kicked to the curb.
Right. No, I love Dog too.
I know. Just
too
like
much to kick. I'm not going to kick a dog movie.
Don't kick a dog.
Please don't. You know how I am about dogs.
But yeah, I'll have to catch up with this one. Well, thanks so much for your pick. Jim, what is your number 4?
My number 4 is Guillermo del Toro's Pinocchio. So really quick, because we might be able to bank a bunch of time here, I'll just say leave it to Guillermo del Toro, one of our favorite filmmakers, to do what Disney has been trying to do and failing miserably at for several years now, and remake one of its beloved animated classics, right? Which Disney also tried to do earlier this year to Pinocchio, and didn't work out so well, right? So this one is a darker and more emotionally resonant retelling, probably closer to the original classic Italian story source material of the wooden boy who comes to life. This could be the best stop action animation movie ever put to screen, although Marcel is going to have something to say about that. I loved to see like a well-loved movie classic like Pinocchio, the Disney one, redone with a different eye and be, in my mind, just as good and just as impactful as the original was. This one's gorgeous, no lies.
Your nose didn't grow, so I think you're telling the truth.
Yeah.
Jim, it's so interesting that you picked Guillermo del Toro's Pinocchio as your number 4, because My number 4 pick is also Guillermo del Toro's Pinocchio, for reasons that you have already mentioned. I'll add a couple more. Ewan McGregor as the conscious cricket. Conscience, well, he's conscious too, but Conscience Cricket, I thought was a fantastic value add here. David Bradley as Geppetto, I think, did a fantastic job. Folks may remember him from Game of Thrones, Walter Frey, as well as the Harry Potter movies, Argus Filch, the dirty old janitor. Don't hold that against him. He's actually marvelous in this film. Man, I cried at like 4 different points in this film. Maybe that accounts for why it is so high on my list. I was a little reticent going into this one because, let's face it, Guillermo del Toro makes a lot of like weird, off the wall horror movies. Like just weirdness movies. I was like, what is he going to do to Pinocchio? But this is probably my favorite representation of Pinocchio. And that's saying something. I like the original quite a bit. And I think I was probably the most favorable of the three of us on the live, not live action, but CGI remake that Disney did earlier this year, or earlier last year, I guess. But this one just absolutely blew it out of the park, not just for Jim, not just for me, but also for listener Andrew Martin, whose number 4 pick is also Guillermo del Toro's Pinocchio. So that's 3 of us right in a row who had this at the same slot on our list, which is kind of amazing, but I think speaks to the quality of this film.
And I think that it's so this one is one of my like 5 honorable mention films, which we'll talk about here in a moment. It's the only film I believe that's represented across all 3 of our lists in some place or another. That's huge. This is a year where 3 Pinocchio movies came out, oddly enough. There's also a really shitty animated one with Pauly Shore as Pinocchio.
Oh God.
I'll send you a link afterwards. It is the worst voice acting you've ever seen in a trailer, so much so that you'll laugh. I need a reaction from you next episode when
I'm
a real boy, dude.
Oh no, Father! I don't want to go on an adventure. No. But this movie's so good. It's dark, but it's dark in all the right ways. It understands kind of like which parts of it needs to be like dark fairy tale and which part of it is just sort of based off of like the feeling of like loss and longing that the Pinocchio character and the Geppetto character are experiencing for different reasons.
Good stuff. All right, it's getting down to the wire, gentlemen. We are now arriving at our top 3, the echelon, the triad of filmmaking incredibleness is here. Will, let's start with you. What was your number 3?
Nope.
Okay.
No, that's what my number
Moving
3
on.
is. My number 3 is Jordan Peele's Nope. All his movies have been absolute top tier for me. I think Nope is able to balance a lot of stuff at the same time. This is a movie about the idea of spectacle. It's about the idea of how we treat tragedy and how we treat experiences in our lives, and it's how we sometimes look towards those things instead of towards the ones we love, all while being a story that is sort of in that supernatural / sci-fi realm. To say where it goes or where it lands would be to absolutely ruin some of the fun reveals here. But this movie just did everything that I needed to do in a movie. Every time I rewatch it, and I've rewatched it a few times now, I discover more. This is a movie where you can tell every moment that appeared in this script was very purposefully placed there. Nothing is by accident. Every thing is sort of like set up or forecasted or whatever, just to really create a very singular experience. Nope is so good. I'm at the point now where Jordan Peele is like 3 for 3 with absolute home runs for me. If like every 3 years, just a dump truck full of money pulled up to his house and he was allowed to make whatever the hell he wanted, I'd be the one driving the car. Let's go. Give me more Jordan Peele movies.
Yeah, this one didn't quite make my list this year, but I really appreciated what this movie did in a few different ways. I think this movie, without going too deeply into things, gets my vote for best use of a animal in a 2020 movie. I'll just leave it at that.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
That works on a couple different levels.
Yeah.
Put it that way.
Yeah. 100%. Yeah.
Says the
So
man
good.
who put Dog as his number 10 film.
I knew I was going to get shit for that. Okay. All right. Well, thank you so much for your number 3. Let's move on to Jim. Jim, what do you got?
Okay, this one's for you, Simon. I knew we'd come back around to this because my number 3 is RRR. This is a fictitious story about 2 legendary revolutionaries and their journey away from home before they start fighting for their country in the 1920s. This is a Will, you need to help me out here. I don't want to call it a Bollywood film, but some people might call it a Bollywood film.
Sure.
This is a film that was produced by S.S. Rajamouli. He's a director, also written. It's an action movie that knocked my socks off, like in the best way. I've seen other, films produced out of India, call them Bollywood movies, whatever, that I really liked. Action movies like this, and I'm like, okay, I'll try this one out. It seemed like it was getting a lot of buzz. It's just a completely entertaining action film and kind of like a love story between 2 men who are magically drawn to one another. This is a long, and I mean love, not necessarily in the sexual or romantic way, but they have a brotherly love, and they form this bond throughout the movie. I'll just leave it at that. You can decide what kind of love it is on your own when you watch it. This is kind of a long film, but it never felt long because I was too busy, like simultaneously, like glued to what the action scenes that were happening on the screen, picking up my jaw off the floor and chuckling at some of the crazy comedy. And there's a couple of music segments in here that are insane. One of the songs in this movie was nominated for best, I think, original song, Natu Natu, which I think means biggest surprise of the year. So yeah, I really, really love this film, and I only regret that I didn't see it on a big screen. I watched it at home on stream.
Jim.
What?
I do believe you were involved in some international craziness where this movie is concerned. Could you talk about that, please?
A little bit.
Little controversy around you.
I had gone on Twitter and did my version of a hot take, which is probably lame, saying that I thought that this was one of the best. I forget exactly what I said, but I said this is one of the best, like, thinly veiled, like, gay romantic films of the year. Right? I thought it was brilliant how they put this gay relationship in this film. And man, did I got roasted on Twitter by fans of the movie, saying that we in the West don't know what true brotherly love is without calling it gay, and all that stuff. So I kind of stepped in it a little bit with it, but I had fun with it. I said, look, I may think it's gay, but I also think it's one of the best movies of the year, and they kind of backed off. But so
listen,
yeah.
you're downplaying this a little bit. Jim's tweet was circulated by several news outlets,
publications
in India about.
Which was not my intent.
Yeah. Sorry, I just had to rib you a little bit because I thought that was awesome.
It was. Yeah. RRR. I think it's wonderful. At someday I'd love to see it on the big screen, which Brad reminds me, I think the Loft is having it this weekend.
I'll totally go with you because I only saw bits and pieces. Yes, I only saw bits and pieces, but it looked incredibly fun. And I was like, man, I kind of wish I got in at the beginning of this one.
It's
so
fun. Yeah,
I'll totally go.
It's
insane.
It's legit great. This movie is 3 hours and 7 minutes long. And again, it's one of those movies that at its runtime, it flies through. And you mentioned Natu Natu being nominated for an Oscar, and that it's like one of the bigger surprises of the year. I think also a big surprise is that it's also the front runner for that category right now. Like, it is the one that is most likely to win, as of today, a month and a half before the ceremony, when things.
I just can't wait to see what they do at the Oscars for the song. It's going to be amazing.
And it's not the only crazy over the top, like, bit of movie magic in this movie. Every few minutes, like, just another amazing scene happens. Yeah, RRR is probably one of the best, like, big budget, like blockbuster type films to grace the screens this year. It's so fucking cool that this movie exists.
And I'm glad that American audiences like got to experience it. You know what I mean?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. All right.
Now,
well, thank
give
you,
me
Jim.
1 second. I'm going to start scrolling through your tweets, Jim.
It's the one with like 80,000 responses.
I did not delete the tweet. I did not delete the tweet.
Good.
I'm still getting comments on that tweet.
All right. My number 3, man, we're getting down to it here, is a film directed by Mark Foster. It stars Tom Hanks, Mariana Trevino, and Rachel Keller. The film is based, or based is the wrong word, but it's kind of like a remake, redo, whatever, of a film called A Man Called Ove. But this film is actually called A Man Called Otto. Actually caught up with this film just after the new year. Didn't get to see it after it came out, I think around the Christmas holidays. But I'll give you the description. Otto is a grump who's given up on life following the loss of his wife. And I feel like this description is a spoiler. It's from IMDb, guys, but I feel like it totally spoils the plot.
Well,
I'll just say Tom Hanks is a total grump. His wife dies. He is like the grump of his neighborhood. And this movie is all about the relationships that he has with other people in the neighborhood, a special cat in his neighborhood, and some crazy things that happen when he gets new neighbors that change his life. This film is very much marketed as kind of a comedy. Without spoiling, I will tell you that yes, there is that element to it, but it goes so many layers deeper than that. This film, I don't know, man, it broke me open. I saw this with Jim and Kevin, our roommate, our friend, and I had to have an extra minute at the end of the movie to just like finish breaking down and like collect myself. So much so that Kevin looked at me and he's like, dude, are you okay? I've never seen you like that upset over a movie. So I'll leave it at that without going any deeper. But this one hits all the heartstrings, and powerful, and also really funny and delightful film.
Yeah. This is a movie where I was a big fan of A Man Called Ove, the Swedish film this is based off of. And I'll be honest, I like the trailer is pretty bad to this movie. The trailer to this movie made me not want to watch it. It felt like it was going to strip away all the things that I liked about the source material, but it didn't. I think that it actually, if anything, it maintained a lot of the things that made the original work so well. Restructured a few things, of course, because you're going to have to do that with the remake. But and in a year where Tom Hanks was nominated for 2 Razzies for Elvis and for Pinocchio, it's nice to see him do a performance where it's like, oh wait, actually, yeah, the dude is like considered one of our favorite actors, favorite American actors for a reason. It's for when he does stuff like this. This was really good.
I think this was a movie that I noticed seemed to get stronger as it went on, like toward the end. This one definitely didn't peter out. I think it got stronger at the end. At the beginning, I wasn't quite fully on board. I did not see A Man Called Ove, by the way. So I'll go back. Brad, we should circle back and watch that one.
Yeah, let's do it.
Especially to compare contrast. Yeah.
But I like the way this one kind of brought it all together and was stronger at the end.
Awesome. All right. Well, I think we have a listener pick for number 3 slot.
Yes, we do. Our number 3 pick also comes from Peter Beta, who I mentioned earlier. He gives us another good pick here with the movie Brian and Charles, sort of a quirky comedy about a man who creates a robotic, I guess, best friend to help deal with his deep depression. Whimsical but also poignant. A really good pick. I'm glad you picked this one. This one I think was kind of overlooked by a lot of people this year.
Well, thank you, Pete. All right. Let's move on to our number 2 slot. Oh my gosh, it's getting real, you guys. Will, what was your number 2?
Okay, so I have a request for the beginning of this one, and this is Brad. Just close your eyes, plug your ears. We'll be done in about 30 seconds.
Oh God, I know
Yeah,
what it is. I
yeah,
know what's coming. It's okay. You know what? With love in my heart for you, I will shut my fucking mouth.
yeah. Fair. And that's because I picked Bones and All, which I know Brad wasn't a big fan of, but I loved this movie. Luca Guadagnino directed this. He gave us the remake of Suspiria. He gave us Call Me by Your Name. Bones and All stars Timothy Chalamet and Taylor Russell as two people who find each other and learn to sort of live on the margins of a society that they don't quite fit into, developing a romantic connection that sort of defies the struggles that they face. The biggest struggle of which being that they are both cannibals. So this is a movie that is and they're cannibals with this like intense like need to eat flesh. It's not just like a thing they do for fun because it's a thing that's like within the lore of this movie. This is something that it's a compulsion that certain people are born. Chalamet is great. Taylor Russell is great. Mark Rylance shows up in this movie, also great. This movie just is another one of those, and I think you'll see this with all of my like top 5 films as they really cemented into place. These were movies that I got to the parking lot and I couldn't drive home right away because I needed to sit with the movies and just sort of let the experience wash over me. They hit me that poignantly. Bones and All, this is the goods. Give me a good horror romance any day of the week.
Yeah, well, I know I saw this one, and I know I really like this film also. Did not make my list, but I did like the vibe of this film. I like the performances, especially what was the actress's name? I thought she was really good, really strong, and
Taylor Russell.
even outshone for me anyway, Timothy Chalamet in this one. I knew that this was like kind of right up your alley. This is the kind of mix of emotional like relationship film with a sprinkle of genre kind of film in there, and horror also, body horror. So that's definitely right up your alley, and I did like it. It just didn't make my list.
Will, are you strapped into your chair?
Yeah, I'm strapped in.
All right. I'm going to say something positive about this movie. Are you ready?
Absolutely.
I loved Taylor Russell in the Lost in Space remake on Netflix, and I was super jazzed to see her show up in this movie.
Mm-hmm. And her performance.
In this movie.
I think she did well. So
Yeah.
a lot of people loved this film. I've been seeing other lists, and it's definitely making its way through those top 10 lists out there. So this seems like a strong pick, friend. Glad you enjoyed it.
And it'd be boring if our picks were all the same. Like, this is I appreciate the fact that we have more different films than we have the same, and I think that just makes for a bigger buffet for anyone that's listening in right now.
Yeah, I mean, if we talked about the same like 10 films, that would be fucking boring. I would not want to listen to that show. So, I guess I'm patting ourselves on the back, but kudos to us for having different tastes. That's a good thing. All right, Jim, your number 2. What is it?
My number 2 is one of the 2 biggest films that we got this year. It is Top Gun Maverick is my number 2. This is just a powerhouse of a movie, kind of that rare animal to me of a sequel that had so much to live up to, right? Being, I don't know how many years went by between the first Top Gun and this one. And in my mind, I think it arguably outshines the original. I think there's so much going on here. I think it's a really tight script. Not a lot of fluff in here. There's some fantastic camera work in the action scenes. Just enough of the emotion and charisma of, undeniable that it is, of Tom Cruise. Maybe some people don't really go for that, but I think he's probably one of our last real, marquee type movie stars. And I'm just going to leave it there. It's my number 2 movie of the year. I saw it more than any other movie this year. There are reasons for that, but one of them is I really, really dug it. And that's all I'm going to say about this film for now.
All right.
For reasons.
Yeah, I'll anything I have to say, I'll save too, because I think we're probably talking about this one in a few minutes, right?
Yes.
We might.
Possibly. I don't know.
Possibly.
Maybe not. Actually, I'll just
Maybe.
say my piece now, just in case there's no, so it's not spoiling thing. This one didn't make my list, but I think this movie does some things pretty well, right? Like Tom Cruise is absolutely a movie star. It's a lot of good effects, a lot of good, just sort of like, I hate to use sort of like a really heavily gendered term because I don't necessarily mean it to go that way, but there's a lot of good like bro chemistry between like all of like the different pilots, regardless of, dude, female, whatever, right? Just like that camaraderie is really well. It really, it hits kind of the same story beats as the first one, but in a way that feels like welcome and not like a retread. Right. I think that's fun. This is a fun time at the movies, and don't we all deserve a little bit of fun?
Yep.
Jim, just to validate your pick, I saw that it's nominated for Best Picture, which is kind of crazy to see a Tom Cruise action movie nominated for Best Picture. So I know we don't put all the stock in the world in the Oscars,
right.
But maybe that validates your choice a little.
We don't. No, it doesn't. I mean, it really doesn't. I mean, I just know that, I think it's a great movie. I think it's, for what it is, it knows what it is, and it turns it up to 11. And, I really dug it. Like I said, I don't put a lot of stock in the Oscars. That's a whole nother conversation we can have.
We will have, because we have that one every year.
We do. Yeah. We do.
Yeah.
All right. Well, thank you for weighing in with your number 2, Jim. My number 2 pick actually came up earlier on the show, and Jim gave us a little bit of a description for this one, but fuck it. I'm going to do it again because that was an hour and a half ago. My number 2 pick is a movie directed by Dean Fleischer Camp, stars Jenny Slate, of course, Dean Fleischer Camp, and Isabella Rossellini, whose performance I particularly loved. This film is Marcel the Shell with Shoes On. In fact, I like this movie so much, I just watched it for the 3rd time yesterday and introduced a friend to it. And it ended up being one of his favorite movies, I think, of 2022. Synopsis for this movie: Marcel, a 1-inch tall shell, lives with his grandmother, Connie, the only residents of their neighborhood, living in an Airbnb after the mysterious disappearance of their family. An Airbnb guest moves in, does a short film about Marcel, puts it on the internet, and craziness ensues. This originally was sort of an SNL thing, then became a short film that then became a film. And man, oh man, did this one hit so many different levels of awesomeness for me. You guys know that I'm really, really weird about comedy. I feel like I say that a lot, but it's true. What 90% of people laugh at, I am just scratching my head and I'm like, what the fuck? That's funny. But this movie had me laughing my ass off. And even watching it for the 3rd time yesterday, like, I know the jokes are coming in the same places, but they still hit me the same. It was still just really like heartwarmingly funny. Marcel is he's a special little oddity. I don't know if you know this. This is an A24 film. That part but in partnership with A24, a company out there made a Marcel the Shell replica made out of metal that you can buy, and he comes in his own like little house with like a roof and a little instruction book that's all like Marshallized. I had to order one, guys. I saw it yesterday. It cost me $45, but I don't care. I'm gonna have Marcel on my desk. It comes Thursday. I'm unreasonably excited about this, so maybe I'll do a little show and tell next week on the show. But I just want to say, even though this is a movie with a lot of laughs, it does a lot of unexpected things around themes of like grief and connection to other people, and like just long journeys through the dark night. Not the Batman.
Not
I
the
talked about
Batman.
him
That's
earlier.
a different movie.
Yeah, that's a different pick. But I never thought that a movie about a stop motion shell would make me just bawl my eyes out. But I mean, it totally did. So there you go. That's my number 2.
Brad, you're in for a treat. So the little figure you've got, he's sitting down on my like wine hutch thing. And the best thing about it is I love it when you get like a little figure like that, and it's like, because it's metal, it's like really heavy. It always feels like, I don't know, it's like it validates the choice even more because it's like it's some substance, right? And that little motherfucker is heavy.
I want to put him in different places around the house like every day, and just like, have him randomly be around.
I sat down today and I thought, shit, I should have brought him upstairs right as we were getting ready to record, because I was like, oh, so
that's funny. All right, awesome, Jim. I think we have a listener pick for number 2.
We do, and this one's from Eric Holmes, our friend of the podcast. This one is a 2022 movie called You Won't Be Alone. I'll just read the IMDb summary for it because I have not seen it, but I might put it on my list. In an isolated mountain village in 19th century Macedonia, a young girl is kidnapped and then transformed into a witch by an ancient spirit. So yeah, we got some witchcraft going on here, and God knows what else. Sounds interesting. Will, I don't know if you saw this one. I know neither of us saw it.
Not yet. Not yet.
No. So
All
Eric's
right.
got one. Eric's got a high pick on all of us, I guess. So right now. So
good stuff.
Will, this sounds like it's up your alley too.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
All right. Well, gentlemen, I know we're gonna rapid fire our honorable mentions here in a little bit. Before we do that, we got to get to the main course, if you will, our number 1s. This is it. It all comes down to this. We've been whittling our letterbox lists down, figuring out what our favorite movie of 2022 was, and here they come. Will, what was yours?
Sometimes you go into a year and you get to the end of the year and you've got like 5 movies that are sort of vying for that number 1 slot, and you're sort of seeing, okay, well, this one did this one made me laugh more, this one made me cry more, this one had the best action, but this one had the best effects, and you're sort of having to say, how do I weigh these things out? But every so often a movie comes along that is so definitively like your number 1 film of the year that everything else can only compete for second by a distance. So for me, there were a lot of different films that I could have chosen here, but it was definitely 100% Everything Everywhere All at Once in my number 1 slot. The film.
I'm going to stop you right there. For those of you who are not watching the video podcast, Will has got hot dog fingers while he's explaining the film, and it's amazing.
I do have hot dog fingers. I have a second set too, but as I was getting ready to put them on, kind of like surreptitiously during the last pick, I realized I wouldn't be able to use my mouse. So we're just going to pretend that both of them have hot dog fingers. But yeah, gosh, Everything Everywhere All at Once really is everything that I need in a movie. Michelle Yeoh, Jamie Lee Curtis, Stephanie Hsu all received Oscar nominations for this film. This movie received 11 Oscar nominations, leading the pack, which, like we mentioned before, you only put so much kind of stock in award shows at all. But this is the type of film that doesn't usually get that type of love. And so the fact that it feels special. Like, it feels special. This movie is about the multiverse, but more importantly, this is a movie that's sort of about nihilism, like the nihilism that sort of overtakes us in our lives as we look at the different paths that we could have taken, versus the sense of belonging that we have with the lives as they exist for us right now, and the relationships that we have right now, and the need to choose kindness and empathy for the people around us, all while dealing with planar butt plugs and infinite bagels and all sorts of just random shit thrown at the wall. My God, this movie is special. It's not just is it one of my favorite of the year, but like I'd be hard pressed to not put this in my
your pantheon.
In my pantheon. When they say it's an all timer. This movie is an all timer. Everything, everywhere, all at once. It deserves all the love that it's been getting. Michelle Yeoh deserves all the love that she's been getting. This movie is just, my God, it's special.
Yeah, well, I mean, this film, we saw this film pretty early in the year, and so that's interesting, and speaks to kind of the impact of this film, right? That it's getting this attention at Oscar time when it came out so early in the year. So that says a lot right there. Also, in my opinion, this is the best multiverse movie of the year, even though there was another movie all about the multiverse, which actually was less about the multiverse than this movie was. So, yeah, so I love that about it. Of course, Michelle Yeoh is awesome in everything she does. And the supporting cast here was great. I mean, it was fun to see Jamie Lee Curtis, but I'm talking about mostly the other cast. I think there were other nominations that came out of this for acting, and they were all well-deserved. So really great pick, Will.
Yeah, I'll just say it now. This was I know it's weird to say The Dog was better than Everything Everywhere All at Once. I liked this movie. It just was strong enough to make my honorable mentions list. It was just shy of my top 10, but really good. And also Adam Kime, friend of ours and listener of the show, he had this as his number one as well, Will. So
yes,
you're in good company with that choice.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely.
All right, Jim. Here we go. Your number one.
My number one is a film that we talked about earlier with one of Will's picks. It's The Banshees of Inisherin. And just briefly, it's about two lifelong friends that all of a sudden find themselves in an impasse when one of them says, I don't want to be in a friendship with you anymore, with very weird and alarming consequences for both of them. And it explores that. It's a super, super dark comedy. Not a laugh comedy, but like you'll smirk and be like, oh my God, that was so that was pretty clever. And it's a tragic story both of lost friendship and the value of human connection, which I really resonated powerfully. Martin McDonagh is great. He did In Bruges. These two actors, I mean, Colin Farrell, I'm going to be pulling for him to win the Oscar for Best Actor this year, even though I don't really care so much about it. I just think it was that good. As I mentioned earlier, all four of the primary actors in this were great. I just also it's another film with so many layers, right? This is an allegory for the troubles that were happening in Ireland around the time this movie was set. And I just think it's smartly well done. It's kind of like if you took the troubles of the two factions in Ireland that were at odds and you boiled it down to like two men or two friends. That's what this movie is. It's great.
Awesome. Yeah, I saw this one was nominated. We spend a lot of time talking about the Oscars for people who say they don't care so much about the Oscars.
I know.
But here's the thing. If something like the Oscars can catapult a film like this, that I guarantee like 80% of normal movie-going audiences probably aren't very aware of this film, if at all. Maybe it puts it on their list to see, and I think that's a good thing. And maybe we can help amplify that signal.
It's a weird title, right? That doesn't help, right? It's a weird title, and it's it's a non-action drama, which doesn't help either. So, but it's just great.
Yeah, and I think that's fantastic. I'm actually thinking about watching this one. I kind of want to watch all the movies nominated for Best Picture because that's really just the main thing I care about from the Oscars.
Sure.
So I might sit down and check this one out. Jim, did you buy it or did you rent it?
I rented it. I seldom buy movies. Yeah.
Okay. All right. Cool. Well, then I'll rent it.
No, I actually went to see this at the movie theater. I take that back.
Oh, you did? Okay.
I went to see this at the movie theater. Yes, I did. I went to see it at the Loft one time. Yeah.
All right. Well, I was looking at it earlier. It's $5 to rent and $10 to buy. So maybe I'll just fucking buy it if it's that good.
Maybe. Yeah.
So Brad,
Cool.
now you're
I'm
going to
down.
have to do if you're going through the top nominations category, maybe we need to have I don't know, when we do our Oscar episode or whatever, or pre-Oscar episode, maybe we just talk about those top 10 nominees or whatever. I don't know.
Yeah,
I'd just be interested in hearing some of your thoughts on some of them before the
that
Mhm.
can
season's
definitely be
over.
fun. Sure, I'd definitely be up for that. Speaking of being over, we're almost there. I know this has been a massive show. We're clocking in an
We're
hour
doing
and
well,
46
though. We're doing
seconds,
well.
which is not our norm, but we kind of thought if we kept this show under 2 hours, it would kind of become a post-Christmas miracle. And I think we're going to make it. So listen, my number one actually came up about 10 minutes ago, and that film. Well, I'll give you a clue. Do some of that pilot shit, Mav. That movie is Top Gun Maverick. I fucking loved this movie so much that we saw it 4 times in theaters, and I've watched it 3 times at home, bringing my total to 7. I can't remember another movie in the last 15 years that I've wanted to sit down and watch 7 times. It seems a little crazy to me. I question my sanity a little bit watching the movie that many times, but I don't know. Like, Top Gun holds such a special place in my heart. I watched it a bunch with my dad when I was a kid. It was such an integral part of my childhood. My dad and I joke about Top Gun all the time. And when they announced that they were doing a sequel to Top Gun, I was kind of, I don't know. I was like, really? Are you really going to go back to
Anxious,
that well?
right? Yeah.
I'm like, you're not going to recapture the magic of Top Gun. So like, why even fucking try? Like, this is dumb. And then I heard like some rumors that Top Gun Maverick was going to be about like drones replacing real pilots, and it was going to be all about like piloting drones. And I'm like, what the fuck? I'm not going to watch Tom Cruise in a room of people flying fucking drones. This is dumb. But went to see this movie. And sort of like that scene in the trailer where Ed Harris is like standing in the desert and the experimental plane like flies over his head and he like flies back and, you know, the building like shakes. That's what this movie did to
Best
me.
opening sequence, I think, of any movie this year. I can't think
My
of another
God.
opening sequence that matches.
Yeah.
For
So
adrenaline.
good. Absolutely. So good. And Tom Cruise is great in this. You know, no matter what you feel about Tom Cruise and some of the extraneous things and dealings with him, his performance was great here. Miles Teller, I fucking love Miles Teller. Kind of discovered him in Whiplash, and he has just been knocking it out of the park in pretty much everything he's been in. Also, Jennifer Connelly, someone who hasn't quite been on my radar. I really liked her in this. So the performances were strong. The effects and action shots were incredible. They were actually in real jets, people. If you haven't seen the movie, when they're actually pulling G's and their faces are like plastered back, that's because they're really pulling 7 G's. I don't know a lot of actors who would be willing to actually go through pilot school and learn not necessarily how to fly, but like how to deal, you know, with those kind of factors. So anyway, I could talk for 45 minutes about this movie. It was incredible. I loved it.
Can I say 2 things?
Yeah.
Really quick. One is I have to, I like to assess movies on my own, assessment 100% if I can, but I have to think that 2 or 3% of my love of this movie is because of your love of this movie. Does that make sense?
Oh, sure. Like you can't walk into another room of the house and seeing your partner watching a movie for the 7th time without like being like, oh, he's really into this, and without that giving you some positive vibes from that movie.
Yeah. And babe, do you remember the first like festival movie we saw when it was like Sundance at the Loft that Miles Teller was in? Do you remember the name of that movie?
Oh shit. Was it Goat?
Was it Spectacular Now?
Wasn't the Spectacular Now?
Yes. That's right. That's right. Yes.
That's one from the past.
Totally.
Yeah.
Wow, that takes me back. Anyway, all right. That is all of our top.
We have one more.
I know, I'm getting there. We have one more from our listeners. Bruce Perky. His number one film was Belle. We've done it, guys. We've done it. We have completed the list now.
Yes.
Whoop, whoop, whoop.
I always wanted to see
but-
the true story behind Beauty and the Beast. Always wanted to see that.
That's what it is. So,
I'm in.
All right.
Yeah.
All right. Let's very, very quickly, because this show is very long.
Creeping up on 2 hours. Yep.
We don't want to overstay our welcome here, but let's do our honorable mentions. Will, go for it. What were yours?
Yeah, let's see. There's The Blind Man Who Did Not Want to See Titanic. There's Prey, the film that's sort of based in the Predator universe on Hulu. Marcel the Shell with Shoes On, we've talked about that. RRR absolutely whips ass. Glass Onion, which is the Knives Out, a Knives Out mystery. Guillermo del Toro's Pinocchio, and just you mentioned like amazing opening sequences in films. I'd also like to put the first like 20 minutes of Athena in there. One of the best like openings to a film that I've seen this year. It's on Netflix.
Rock
Athena.
on.
Nice.
Mhm.
All right, Jim, go for it.
Okay, mine are The Fablemans, Steven Spielberg's piece. The Northman, which we talked about. Petit Maman, which was one I watched early in the year that I really love. That's a gem. Linoleum, which, by the way, is being released in February. We saw this film back
Ooh.
in South by or Sundance. I can't remember which
South
last
by.
year. That's coming out in February. It's finally being released. Wildcat documentary. It's on Netflix. No, it's on Amazon Prime. Will, I copied you, The Blind Man Who Did Not Want to See Titanic. You gave me that recommendation early last year. I love that film. Weird name, but I love it. And Dog, we know we love Dog. And Red Rocket, which was another favorite from last year that kind of fell between years, but I watched it in 2022 and I loved it.
Jim, I have to take severe issue with you putting Dog and Red Rocket next to each other on your list.
I thought the same thing, Will.
You think
My
there's
mind
some
instantly-
subliminal shit going on in my head?
My mind instantly went to South Park. Red
Went
Rocket,
to
Red
Dog
Rocket,
Dicks?
Red Rocket.
Yeah.
Oh, goodness.
Bring
Oh,
us home,
goodness. All right.
Brad.
All right. My honorable mentions include another South by Southwest film, Gabby Giffords Won't Back Down, the documentary all about the wonderful, fantastic Gabby Giffords. Everything, Everywhere, All at Once, as I mentioned, very close to making my top 10 list. Doctor Strange and the Multiverse of Madness. Again, apparently multiverse was my thing. I had 2 of those movies this year. The Black Phone, which Jim talked about earlier. And Still Working 9 to 5, another South by Southwest movie. I just want to say that, like, sometimes people look at film festivals with like this askance view, like this side eye, like, oh, film festivals, it's just like art house movies that jerk themselves off. I may have said that in the past too, but I think it's awesome that 2 films in my honorable mention list came from a film festival and have made a place for themselves in my lists and in your list, Jim. And they don't always, get a wide release. Not everybody gets to see them, but I think it's great that we have that opportunity and we get to celebrate them.
And to be fair, granted, they were only in the theatrical part of the festival, but Everything Everywhere All at Once was also South by Southwest this year.
Yeah.
And The Black Phone went through Fantastic Fest, and I think so. There's a lot of great films that go through the festival cycle. So if you are living near a local film festival, whatever it happens to be, if it's your town's local film festival, if it's one that's playing 3 movies, or at your local multiplex, or if it's like a whole weekend long thing, go check it out. There's going to be some gems there. Your favorite movie of the year might be there, and you just don't know it yet.
Right.
Absolutely a great point. Well, Jim, you mentioned earlier that this is your favorite show of the year.
Yeah.
This is definitely up there for me too. I love celebration of film like this. I also love our superlatives episode, which we'll be coming at you with. That's coming down the pipeline too. But guys, I know it takes a lot of time and energy and thought and passion to whittle so many films down to just, 10 and some honorable mentions. But thanks for putting in the hard work. And thank you to our listeners for sharing your picks as well. Really great to hear from you folks in terms of what tripped your triggers and what made your list. So thank you for that. Jeez Louise, Jordy, our cat, has his face right up in Jim's camera. What the fuck? Hi,
And
Jordy.
out of nowhere, like I damn near shit my pants just now. Is like all of a sudden there's like giant cat face.
What's that, Jordy? What's that?
Oh goodness. Hey, in case anybody wants to chat between now and next week, let's talk about how folks can find and engage with us online. Just remember, God is watching.
And so is Jordy.
And so is Jordy. Just referencing a comment we had in the chat earlier that was crazy.
Yeah.
Jim, where can people find you online?
You can find me on Twitter at JJP, my initials, out west. So JJP out west. That's me on Twitter, where I like to engage about movies and other stuff. And you can find me on Facebook under my name, Jim Pugliafico. And guess what? You can find me also now on Letterboxd.
Yay!
Yeah.
Love it.
It's happening.
All right. Thanks, Jim. Will, how about you?
Yes, so I'm on Instagram. I am at whatever cove there. You can find me on Facebook. Just look for William Lindis there and make sure it's the one that looks like the face that you're seeing on the screen if you're watching live, or the one that might, if you're listening, it's just look for the one that looks like it might match the voice that you're hearing. Roll the dice. You can also find me on Letterboxd. I'm at whatever code. I'm at Fundamental there. Sorry, too many handles. Or just search for me by name, William Lindis there. And then I'm on TikTok at the Movie Bear. It's mostly thirst traps because I don't know how to TikTok.
Will, did you change your Letterboxd?
No, so my Letterboxd is under the name Fundamental. So normally you can search for people by member name, so search by William Lindis, but it's always been under the profile Fundamental, but it's easier usually. Okay. Yeah, it's usually just easier to give the name and let people search by member name. Yeah.
Gotcha. All right. Well, you can find me on Facebook. I'm the Brad Harris that has probably some Chub Chaser Bear friends in common with you. Dolphin friends, that's a new term to me, but it's a thing, apparently. You can also find me. Yeah, so Will, I see the look you're giving me. A dolphin is apparently a large, hairless gay man.
Oh.
I learned this at a kink discussion group.
Isn't it any hairless gay man? I thought. I don't know.
My understanding it's like a hairless chub is a dolphin is another way to put it.
Hairless chub is a dolphin. Okay, all right, yeah. I just had to Google real quick because I was just like, the fuck is a dolphin from? Now I know.
Anyway, the more you know. I'm also on Letterboxd. You can find me there, and on Twitter, look for @iBradPro, and we will come at you folks next week. Until then, stay safe, stay sane, watch some movies. Hopefully, we've given you some good ideas for some things to check out, and we'll see y'all next time. Goodbye, everybody.
Bye.
Bye-bye.